Good morning, Senator Thompson and senators. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Kim Dadou, and I was a victim before I was a defendant. When I met Darnell, we were inseparable for 4.5 years. He was my dream come true. The first time he hit me was the night he proposed to me, and I had to deny his proposal. He slapped me across the face, called me ungrateful. He slapped me so hard, my face bounced off the car window. But this was not even close to the first serious incident of abuse. The first time the abuse became serious and dangerous, we had just come from a family gathering at Darnell's cousin's house. When we got into the car, he accused me of checking out his cousin. I kept denying his accusations, trying to comfort him, but he refused to believe me. He started beating me, slapping me, shoving me against the car door. I was driving. I begged him to let me pull over so I could use the bathroom. I knew there was a hospital close, so I turned into the emergency room entrance. Darnell told me to park where I can watch you. If I see you talk to anybody, I'm going to burn your car to the ground. As I walked into the emergency room, I could feel my face swelling, and I tasted blood in my mouth. I know. I saw a nurse, and I said, I need to use the bathroom. And she said, oh my God, what's wrong? Come here. And as she was tending to my face, I was saying to her, he's in the car, he's gonna kill me. And there were cops in the emergency room who pulled out a piece of paper and said, sign this piece of paper. They paid no attention to how upset I was or that I had been beaten up. The cop said to me, settle down, woman, we got this. Darnell emerged from the car completely calm. They arrested him, but 3 hours later, he was back at my house. Looking back, I wonder why the police never took a statement from me when I was sitting in the ER. All they had me do was sign a piece of paper. On another occasion, I picked him up from work. He had had a bad night, so he said to me, if you stop at the red light, I'm going to knock you out. We pulled up at a yellow light, so I stopped. He kept yelling, run the light, run the light. We were low on gas, and he said, if we run out of gas, I'm gonna kill you. He kept threatening me, and I tried to jump out of the car. He grabbed a pair of scissors and stabbed me in the hip. As I held onto the wheel, I still have the scar. When we got home, he took me into his garage. As I started walking, I started crying because the pain in my hip had hit me. He raped me over his car and then took all of my money. Inside of his house, he forced me to lie on the carpet while he laid down on the couch. He said, don't get blood on the carpet. When Darnell beat me, it was usually in the car because I was alone. Most of the time, I was driving him somewhere. I always drove with my left hand so I could block the blows with my right. I had him arrested 5 times. We appeared in court 4 times, but he never once was incarcerated. On the 4th appearance, the judge said, if you put your hands on her again, you're going to jail. Of course, there was another incident. The night before we were to appear in court for the 5th time, Darnell came to my house and tried to make nice. We went to a hotel. I told him, we're still going to court tomorrow. When I woke up the next morning, my clothes were gone, my purse, my car, my keys. He had pulled the phone cord out of the wall. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't go outside. So I sat in the room, missed my court appointment. When he finally returned with dinner and my clothes, court was closed. There were other times when I tried to go to court and he would hold me hostage. I thought I was a very strong woman, but I just became hollow. I moved back to my mother's house for safety because if I screamed there, someone would hear me. My mother called the police a couple of times. They never arrested him. They would just make him leave. On the night of December 17th, 1991, he came to my mother's house, and I knew he meant to do me harm. I got into the car, and after a brief disagreement, he grabbed me by the throat and started choking me, saying, "This is it, bitch, this is it." As he was hitting me, he was shouting, saying that I was ugly and that no one would want me because of the scars he put on me. I started screaming, but no one could hear me because it was winter, and we were alone outside in the car at night. He kept yelling and shoved my head under the dashboard of the passenger seat, hitting me, choking me, holding me down. I couldn't see anything, I couldn't breathe. I tried reaching for the door to pull on the handle, but the power locks were on. I kept pushing him off of me, but he was too heavy. I was screaming so hard, I couldn't breathe. I knew he kept a gun under the passenger's seat, and I grabbed the gun, not with the intent to shoot him, but with the intent to get him off of me. Before I knew it, the gun just went off. And he let go of me. I fell against the car door. I turned, I unlocked the power locks. I fell into a snowbank, and I ran into my mother's house. He screamed, "Bitch, get back here," and drove away. So I never thought I had shot him. I thought for sure he was going to come back and kill me that night. When the investigators arrived at my house 2 days later, they told me that he had been killed in a car accident and asked me to go with them to identify the car. I was in shock. I went with the police, and when I got in the car, they said to me, "You can cut the act. We know you did it." After 12 hours of interrogation, I was arrested and charged with murder in the second degree. The police said I would not be convicted if I confessed. With no lawyer present, I gave the police an 8-page statement outlining the altercation and our history of abuse. Only after I gave the statement was I allowed to make any phone calls. My first public defender wanted me to take a plea of manslaughter, but I refused the plea of 8 1/3 to 25. I would not plead guilty because no one would listen to me. No one wanted to hear that I was a battered woman. I wasn't trying to get away with anything. I just wanted someone to listen to me. 6 months later, I was granted bail, so I hired my own lawyer when I got out of jail. Before my trial, the lawyer advised me not to take the stand because he said the prosecution would rip me to shreds. Since I did not testify, the judge refused to admit the police reports, the hospital reports, the battered women's shelter reports, and witness statements. She said it was self-supporting evidence, and I couldn't enter it in at trial unless I took the stand. The district attorney said, "A battered woman does not have a good job or money in the bank." She looked at me and said, "You, Miss Dadou, have traveled, have a career." From that moment, the DA tried to make me look like a cold-blooded, calculating killer. I had never been arrested before in my life, gotten in any trouble. Nobody took notice that he came to my mother's house that night to do me harm. No one took note of the fact that I had him arrested 5 times prior. During my sentencing, hundreds of letters were written on my behalf. Protesters stood outside the courtroom with signs saying, "Bring justice to battered women, free Kim Dadou." While my judge allowed some of the evidence, there was not enough to convince the jury. They found me guilty of manslaughter in the first degree. I was sentenced to the same 8 1/3 to 25 years. I was denied parole 5 times because of the nature of my crime. I served 17 years in prison, and I can tell you that prison is not a place for a woman to rebuild herself after being dehumanized by her abuser. Because of my crime, when I was released from prison, they wanted to put me in a reform group of abusers. They saw me as a perpetrator and not a victim of domestic violence. I told my parole officer I would rather go back to prison than participate in a group for abusers. The Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act is essential so women don't lose years of their lives like I did. The court system is supposed to protect you, and instead it was turned against me. The police never took my accusations seriously, and the more Darnell got away with beating me, the more beaten down I became. An order of protection is just a piece of paper. It's not a shield. The question that always stayed with me is, why didn't somebody come looking for me when I didn't show up for court? Why didn't anyone care? I could have been dead somewhere and just no one cared. I took a life. I live with that every single day. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about him in some capacity. But the criminal justice system's approach of an eye for an eye is sending the wrong message. It tells a woman it's okay for him to hit you. I share my story in support of the Domestic Violence Survivors Justice Act to help all of those women who remain locked up to change the system that failed to protect me. This bill is an opportunity to prevent the cycle of domestic violence and give women a real opportunity to build their lives. I came home almost 50 years old. I deliver pizzas for a living. I have 2 college degrees and can't get a decent job because of my felony conviction. I'm not saying poor me. I'm saying, can we help somebody? Can we help women to not get where we are? But I thank you for your time.
Thank you.